it's not just one angle that you film it from, because then that is a very simple shot. And that's my cue to know that this chap is going to get on its hind legs and reach for the greens right above. I want both the animals in front of me. I don't want to come in between. A lot of times, hunts fail because we're too eager to be there. I need to stop doing ads and music videos, and I need to focus on stories that were more important and stories that this planet needs. The end goal is to produce incredible films from India by Indians and really make it on par with planet Earth, our planet, and everything else that's out there. That's the dream.
Hi everyone, good evening. Good to see you all here. That's a lot of people. I'm excited to introduce today's inspiring speaker, Kenneth Lawrence, an international award-winning wildlife filmmaker. An international award-winning wildlife filmmaker and photographer, Kenneth transitioned from a successful career as an ad and music video director to capturing India's incredible biodiversity. Inspired by Sir David Attenborough, his work on species like snow leopards and tigers has gained global recognition. I hope you enjoy this insightful session and leave with a deeper appreciation for wildlife. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Hello, everyone. It is fantastic to see you all this evening. Thank you very, very much for coming. Before we get into the session, who traveled here from the furthest just to get here? No, except for my wife. Oh, fantastic. Where did you guys come down from? Oh, wow. Especially for the talk? How about you? Hyderabad. Fantastic. Wow. You came specially for the talk? My goodness. You shouldn't have. But thank you for being here. Thank you so much for being here. How about everyone? Are you all from Mumbai? Amazing. Are you all nature lovers? Have you all gone out on safari? Who hasn't gone out on safari? It's okay, raise your hand. All right, we have 2, we have 3. Okay. Do you guys like urban wildlife? Do you like urban wildlife? I'm talking about birds. I'm not talking about people. Yeah, okay. I'll show you some urban wildlife at the end of the session because that's where my love began. It began actually when I was a child because of my father who raised me on various documentaries on National Geographic. But many, many years later, as a filmmaker and a photographer, it was only urban bird life that sort of pulled me into it because I didn't know how many species were out here. And when I found out how many species we had, I fell in love. And I think that has become the love of my life after my wife, I have to say that. All right. Over the last 5 years, it was actually since COVID-19. Until then, I was doing ads and music videos and all that sort of stuff. It was a job that a lot of people wanted to have, but they didn't. But I didn't find any happiness doing that job. Sure, advertising is great. It pays the bills. It pays for a better lifestyle, a lavish lifestyle. But it was happiness that was missing. And I found that happiness only after the COVID-19 pandemic with my camera. I was sitting at the window and out of nowhere there was a coppersmith barbet that just sat on the branch outside. Does anybody know what this bird is, the coppersmith barbet? Good. Very few. Okay. I kind of like that. I love that a lot of you do not know this bird because it is you who I want to get into. Your minds, your hearts, and I want to show you what we have. It's not about exotic locations. We have wildlife right here. And I'm also going to show you how to nurture it, how to bring them home, and how we have the best neighbors that we could ever have. A lot of people think heaven is someplace in the sky, but it's not. It is right here on earth. And over the next hour, maybe longer, forgive me if I take a little time, I'm going to show you that this is the best life you can have. Happiness is something we all pursue, and it is right around the corner. Okay, these are some of the visuals that I eventually captured. I set out to various locations with my camera, trying to understand what species we have and just enjoying the biodiversity, richness, not just in India, but across the world. And there were many lessons that I learned along the way. I'm going to move to Kabini. Kabini is in Karnataka. And when I was taking a break from my advertising, I found out that you have leopards here. And I wanted to see a leopard so bad, because I saw my first leopard when I was 19. And do you know where I saw it? Right here in Mumbai, in Film City. I went to a film school called Whistling Woods in Goregaon East, and I studied film direction. One night when we were doing a sequence for my diploma film, there was a leopard walking across the dam wall. And we thought it was a cat, and we thought, oh no, this is too small, it's got to be a dog. But as our eyes got used to the low light in the distance, we realized, damn, this is a leopard. And that was fantastic. But I wasn't into wildlife photography back then. I was only 19. It was only about 10 years later, when I was moving away from ads and music videos, and I wanted to find happiness somewhere else. I Googled about leopards online, and then I found out about a photo tour safari. I had no idea what photo safaris were, Let me show you what I captured. Fantastic wildlife. This is where I was beginning to realize about biodiversity. And remember, at this point, I was hell-bent on leopards. There was nothing else that was on my mind, because I didn't know what was out there. Beautiful Asiatic elephants, a little one, and then that sort of pulls you in. You forget about what you set out for, and you start seeing beauty everywhere else. Does anybody know what these are? Who said wolf? Dhole, yeah. You're absolutely right. I recognize you, little boy. How's it going? Stand up, say hello. No, stand up, let everybody see you. I met this young gentleman when I was shooting a leopard documentary last year. Was it last year or was it this year? It was this year in Rajasthan. Thank you so much for coming. How old are you, by the way?
I'm 11 years old.
You're 11. Okay, I have a gift for someone who is the youngest, and you're going to be competing with them. Just letting you know. All right, I'll catch you soon. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, these are dholes. They're the Asiatic wild dogs. And very beautiful to see. I wasn't prepared for being able to get close-ups. I thought I would only be seeing them at a distance. I didn't know what lens to take, but the lens I took turned out to be the right lens, and I was able to get portrait shots as well. Apart from mammals, there were owls. This is a brown fish owl. These guys hunt fish, and they're very active in the night. Forgive me, I'm going to have a little bit of water. Can I have a bottle, please? It was incredible to see that there were birds outside, and I didn't know about these species. Whoops. Let's go back. Yeah. This is the crested hawk eagle. I didn't know about them. I was 29 and I didn't know how much beauty we had right here in India. This is a crested serpent eagle. These guys hunt snakes. And just look at how the food chain works. You have snakes controlling rodent populations, and then you have birds controlling snake populations. Thank you very much. Cheers, everyone. And then there were little birds. There were raptors, those eagles you saw. This is the streak-throated woodpecker. gorgeous little specimen, and they're oh so fast. They just move around, and then it's very hard to capture them. And then there was a striped-necked mongoose. These words are tongue twisters. You'll have to get a little bit used to them. I thought India had just one regular grey mongoose, and then suddenly you find out one species and another species, and then it becomes so addicting. Of course, we have the little mammals. That's the grey langur, which all of you know, and that's the spotted deer. Very fascinating species. When langurs are with the deer, they sort of share this symbiotic relationship, where the langurs will climb onto trees, they'll eat these leaves, they'll throw some part of it down, and the deer find that exotic because it's fresh. They can't reach out to the tree, and they eventually eat that. But then, after seeing so many beautiful animals and seeing the biodiversity, there was something else that sort of twisted my gut. And this is the very first time that I got to understand what conservation is. This deer was probably drinking water in the Kabini river. And there is fishing that happens. And when there is fishing, there are ghost nets that go off. They get let loose from larger fishing nets, and then they become trash. And that trash can sort of cost an animal their life. Of course, it did not cost this deer its life, but it is very important to understand that we have to take very good care of the things we do and be absolutely responsible. I didn't find a leopard. Remember, I went to Kabini for a leopard. There was no leopard. And I didn't take it as a disappointment. I booked the very next flight to Africa because I grew up watching wildlife in Africa, and I thought this might be a sure shot. Of course, you see the stereotypical landscape, the stereotypical wildlife, and there's the leopard. I'm joking. That's just an African cheetah. We saw these brothers, very friendly boys. They were several kilometers from my lodge, but they were moving somewhere, and eventually they were right outside my lodge. One morning, we saw them 30 feet outside the gate. They are sub-adult boys, and they were on the move to get their own territory. So along the way, I was understanding how the natural world worked. And that is very important for a wildlife filmmaker or a wildlife storyteller. I was fortunate to see my very first live hunt. We had a crossing where several wildebeests were going down the Mara River, and they were coming onto the other side. And I will show you more on this in the presentation. I actually have some videos. Again, great stuff. Got to look at different colors, different species, blah, blah. Fantastic sunsets, but still no leopard. Where are these guys? And now you're beginning to realize that they have evolved to be invisible. No leopard wants to be seen. It's sharing its landscape with lions, with cheetahs, with hyenas, and everything else. And they all have to compete for resources. And to stay alive is to be hidden. And leopards know all too well that they need to be invisible. I finally found this gorgeous babe. She was fast asleep, and I told my driver, we're not doing anything else. We're just going to stay with this girl and enjoy the evening with her. We stayed with her until she woke up. And that's her right there. Right after her stretching, and right after I moved on to the other side of the tree to get a different angle of her. Does anybody know what this is? You're right, that's Dick. It's probably as tall as your shin, and absolutely adorable creatures. Quintessential Africa. This was a very rare moment. These are lion cubs less than 10 days old, and they are still blind. They can't see the world. They haven't seen their mother yet, but they're suckling. They're getting that very early nourishment. They need to become strong lions. This is when I learned how important it is to track species. Right outside this area, this is a very dense bush. You could not see straight through it, and you couldn't see what was inside. but there was a lion, a male lion, sitting right outside. And we thought, okay, there's a bush here. What if he's guarding something inside? You need to have that curiosity, and you need to go fulfill that curiosity. There may be nothing inside, but you have to go there and see what's there. Our cameras couldn't see anything just yet, but we found a small opening, and we held our binoculars. And I kid you not, this was one amazing moment that you can experience. We saw this lioness, and there were two little cubs suckling. None of the other photographers in the car took a shot, but I managed to get one little opening, requested all of them to wait, and we have this little moment. My only regret is that I didn't take a video, but the point here is be curious and go to see what's there on the other side. There could be a bush right here. It's a lot of harsh light, but there's shadow in there and you can't see. But just peep and something might be there. All right, enough fluff. Let's get down to business. What is wildlife filmmaking? It's a guy who is crazy about nature or a dame who's crazy about nature, and then they head out, they film it, they tell its story, and that's it. There's a lot more. It's not as simple as that. It's all about curiosity, and you have to be able to satiate that curiosity. What's in the highest mountains? What's in the deepest jungles? This is one of my favorite species. It's the great hornbill that I captured in Raigad in Konkan, Maharashtra. And what I did here, if you see behind the sky, there are stars. Like a crazy man, I left my camera all night. I went to a lodge, spent the night there. My camera was busy taking time lapses because there was a full moon. So here's my camera. Here's the full moon, and the full moon lit up the entire landscape for me until it went behind the mountain. And then I took a shot of the hornbill in the day, and this is a little bit of imagination. It's a composite image. The next, what's beyond sandy shores? It's not just about land or sky. What's within our waters? And then, can hostile deserts really harbor life? And if so, how does it sustain that life? These are just a few of the questions that we need to ask ourselves as nature enthusiasts. And then things just keep happening. I love a good backstory. So let's time travel. I don't think this slate sets the mood. Maybe this one should. Does anybody know when the very first motion picture camera was made? Anyone? And who made it? Have you all heard of this gentleman, Edison? Absolutely. Let's go back to 1890, to the kinetograph. It was this device that had celluloid running through it, and it captured light. Eventually, you had to be able to see that motion picture. And then, simultaneously, Edison invented this machine. It's the kinetoscope. Only one person could watch a film at a time. Or it wasn't even a film, it could be a few seconds of video. You see that device, that little eyepiece right on the top? That's how you would have to stand, look through it, and watch. Imagine this as TikTok back in the day. Everyone was so amused by it. And then there is a TikTok parlor where everyone could come in, they could spend 25 cents. And 25 cents was incredibly expensive. Now we just scroll away. But I want you to appreciate how we all came here. There was a problem. Can anybody tell me what this problem was? Exactly. Sound didn't exist in film unless you projected something, and then someone would play live, and you'd have that live music, and you would have a live narrator. And that's how people could hear stories. But through visuals, if someone were to watch a piece, they weren't able to hear anything. This is what it looked like. And the advent of natural history filmmaking pretty much started with the invention of the motion picture camera. You saw a black and white image, and it was fascinating because no one else got to see this before. So even though there was no sound, it was still something to marvel at. This is how stories were told. There was a little slate, just like Chaplin had, and that's how stories went on. A little bit later, we had color, but we still didn't have any sound, and it didn't matter because we were getting closer and closer to today. About 135 years later, this is what we have. We've got 6K cameras, we've got 8K, we've got 12K, and we can hear species. There is no better time in history to be a storyteller than right now. This was filmed on my rooftop. Remember we spoke about urban birds? This guy is all around here, on every tree almost, right around our buildings as well, and they nest. Remember, the eyes see, the ears listen, and the soul feels. So as a storyteller, it's not just pretty visuals. Our job as filmmakers is to capture the audience completely, both audio and visual. Has anyone seen a purple-rumped sunbird like this close? Awesome. Beautiful little birds. And if you have a balcony with nectar-bearing flowers, you will get to see them a lot more often. Okay, now I want to show you how important sound is, because the first segment of my talk is going to be about sound. This is a 2-minute clip from a short film that I made called The Extraordinary Birds of India. It's going to take you through various bird species that we have. And more than the visuals, I want you to pay attention to the sound. You will have footsteps, you will have bird song, you will have branches breaking, you will hear the waves, and you will hear so much more. So pay very close attention to it. Any aspiring wildlife filmmakers in here? Fantastic. Pay attention. This is how you layer your storytelling.
This was outside my breeder.
This is Mumbai. There we go. I hope you guys liked that, and I hope you guys understood the importance of sound. A lot of people think that when we are filming, we have these huge microphones on our camera, and that picks up every bit of sound, but it does not. People see that big fluffy microphone, which is supposed to be a wind muffler, and it'll pick up sounds of a leopard walking or a bird chirping in the distance. But really, what you record on set while filming is this. You end up hearing the other safari tourists, And you end up hearing people saying, oh, tiger, 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 or oh, leopard, leopard, leopard. And that's what we end up capturing. Our job as filmmakers is to clean the audio completely and recreate certain sound effects. Let's look at the snow leopard. I filmed this guy 500 meters away from the camera. No way am I going to get its footsteps or its yowls or any other sounds that it's making. Here's what the actual sound was. Just breeze hitting my camera. That's the real location audio. And now let's look at the audio that was recreated. We have to be sneaky as filmmakers. We've got to cheat sometimes just to be able to make sense to you as an audience. Sound is always recreated in post. Unless there is a lion fighting, and then you record that bit, and then sound engineers eventually tweak all of the unwanted noise and the unwanted wavelengths, and they keep only what is necessary. These are the 3 keys to sound design. Number 1, foleys. Foley means your footsteps. When you see 2 physical things making contact, it has to make a sound. Make that sound happen. The audience sees it, and we subconsciously expect that, because 2 physical things coming together, they have to make you hear something. The second important thing is the ambience. The ambience could be the rustling of leaves outside the frame. So dig into the truth that's out there, auditory, and make sure that the audience can really listen to everything. The next bit is imagination, because there are some things that don't make sound. What sound do you think happens here? It's too low to pick up, and that's where you use your imagination. Pay close attention to the audio. Here I'm taking audiences into the macroverse. The macroverse does not have any sound. A little bit of imagination, and really what it is stuff like that. You got to be creative. What can something sound like? Again. And it can be used somewhere. Back to the basics. To become a wildlife filmmaker, you have to first be obsessed with the natural world. If you do not love something, you will not be able to represent it. And filmmaking is all about, natural history filmmaking is all about representing the natural world in its truest form. We have to be very scientifically accurate, and we have to have the objective truth that is out there. No species is too big or too small. The subject you see on the left can stand almost 10 feet tall. And the subject you see on the right is the purple-rumped sunbird again. You know how big the species is? It's just that tiny. It is that little. But you know what? There's a story everywhere, and if you love nature, keep looking out. Don't just go to the prime wildlife. Look at everything that really makes up an ecosystem. This is something that I captured, I think, in Kanha, if I'm not mistaken. It was a giant wood spider waiting for a meal, and then it finally got its catch. Now, sound is one thing. We've seen big animals, we've seen small animals. The basic thing is to know what types of ecosystems we have. We've got deserts, we've got mountains, we've got wetlands, grasslands, we've got rainforests, and it is the environment that dictates how a species adapts. Here we've got mountains, we've got a Himalayan ibex, we've got a Bengal fox, we've got an oriental dwarf kingfisher. This is one of the smallest kingfishers in the world and the most colorful. And all the way to the right, we have a little stint. So how do species adapt to these terrains? You have snow leopards chasing the ibex, and then the ibex has to run and somehow fight for its life. It has to adapt. And the bottom of its hooves have soft pads. And everywhere it steps, it's not the ibex that is gripping the ground. It's almost as if the rocks are gripping the ibex. We've got the run of Kutch, which is a very parched landscape. Look at the color of the fox and look at the yellows in the bottom. It has adapted to blend in because there are predators around. The fox is a predator in itself, but it has to blend in to survive. That's camouflage for you. Now we have a species that doesn't have any camouflage, but it has adapted to be very agile, and that gets it away from danger. You have raptors in the jungle, you have snakes, there could be anything out to get you. For an animal in the wild, every day is your last day, and that's how you have to consider it. So this little fellow has speed on its side, and you can see what's in its mandible. There's a tiny little frog. Its breeding season is dictated by the monsoon, the seasons. And you have to know these things as a filmmaker to know what season brings you what species. So we have the nesting of the oriental dwarf kingfisher in the monsoon, and the frog that it's picked up is just one of the assortment of meals that it gets to feed its chicks. And now we have Jamnagar, we have rocky shores. This little stint has come in from, so we have waders that come in from Europe and Siberia to escape the winter in their region. And they come down south, and Mumbai becomes their home as well. It's not just Jamnagar, you can see these birds down here. Okay, how many of you pay attention to animal behavior? Very important for a photographer, for a filmmaker, or even a nature enthusiast. To have the best sighting or to be able to appreciate something, you need to understand it. I'm going to show you behavior that is kleptoparasitism. Now, I was following the short-toed snake eagle that you see on the top. It was nesting, it had a young chick in its nest, and it was bringing it food. Short-toed snake eagles hunt snakes, rodents, monitor lizards, so on and so forth. Because they're birds of prey and their young ones need that protein. But at the same time, there was a black kite that came in here and it was trying to snatch an easy meal. Kleptoparasitism in its shortest form is basically a survival strategy where one species steals from another. It's all about conserving energy. And we love sitting and ordering in. That's how we conserve our energy, and animals do the same. Here's a short video.
It's not a serpent, but a baby monitor lizard. It might not be much of a meal, but in the wild, any food is good food. And that's what this black kite knows all too well. With razor-sharp vision, the opportunistic thief flies above the male eagle and strategizes the steal. The male eagle notices the intruding kite and secures the monitor lizard kill in its mouth with only the tail hanging outside. Snatching the lizard now would be a tricky affair for the kite. However, there are two black kites after the male eagle and not one. The female in the nest notices that her partner is outnumbered. She rushes to his aid. Competition for resources and territorial fights are common amongst birds during the breeding season. Every one of them wants the best share. The young eaglet waits alone in the nest. It's hungry, unprotected, and most likely unaware of the aerial tug of war that its parents are entangled in. The mother returns, but not empty-handed. Both eagles have successfully kept the intruders at bay.
It's so marvelous to see how parents fight to protect their young ones, just like you see in human beings. Here, you're trying to feed your young one, and then there's a thief coming in to take away your bread and butter. But you have to keep the thieves at bay. There are two thieves here, not one. Does anyone know where we're getting at now with this slide? Someone, come on. Everyone except my wife and my friends. Yes, let's hear from the little boy in the front.
So basically, the sunbird chicks will the
Little poop.
and the parents will remove it, and it gets in a particular. It's collected in a particular membrane
Yeah.
in the body of the two young ones, and then the parents collect it in the beak and throw it away.
Absolutely. Let's give him a good round of applause.
You
Thank
just
very
saw
much.
your episode last week.
Oh, you did? Fantastic. Let me show everybody else what this young man means. Birds have to keep the nest clean, so let's find out how they do it.
All the food that the little ones consume must also find a way out. And Mum waits patiently to carry out the second half of her duties.
Oh, she just took out the fecal sac. How incredible was that? You have the chicks pooping in fecal sacs, which is this tiny little membrane, and looks like it's filled with a little paint. It's so amazing how nature takes care of itself, and we keep the nest clean.
Sometimes fecal sacs can take a while. It's like waiting for a diaper to fill up so you can just toss it away and be done with it. Constantly monitor anything, and it's likely to take its own sweet time. The mother waits for more diapers compared to the father. But it doesn't mean that dad avoids the responsibility of nappy disposal. The quest to find soiled pampers goes on and on and on.
Wildlife films don't have to be very serious. You can step into a little humor, make it relatable, because just as human beings do, we try to monitor if the liquid we put into the freezer has become ice cream yet, and it just doesn't happen. Sometimes you have to let it be and give it its time. And that's what sunbirds also learn. Let the babies poop, and then when it's ready, take it and disperse it elsewhere. It took me 4 days to film these sunbirds because I had to document them from multiple angles. A lot of remote cameras were used from multiple angles, and I was doing one angle for a few hours, getting it repeatedly, and that's how I got the shot. But more importantly was I did not roll for 3 weeks. We saw this nest. It was my wife who found it right outside our room in Run Riders in Gujarat. And we observed it. Over time, the birds got used to us. They realized that we were not a threat. And then we managed to get some of these visuals. Let's look at eurohydrosis and thermoregulation. Have you guys heard of these terms? Anybody? Except my wife and the guys who watch my YouTube videos. All right, thermoregulation, you all understand. You need to sort of find that balance of your body temperature with surrounding.
Shortly after, we met another family. These are woolly-necked storks, and they are raising 2 young chicks. We saw them the previous day before exiting the park, but there wasn't much activity inside the nest. This nest has no protection from the scorching sun, and both the parents are directly exposed to the blistering temperatures. Storks, amongst some other birds and animals, have devised an ingenious strategy to beat the heat. They perform behavioral thermoregulation by excreting on their bare legs every now and then. This method of using fecal matter to cool off is called urohydrosis.
It's almost 50 degrees Celsius over here.
The water body besides the nest is an oasis for the storks. Whilst the parents can grab a drink, the chicks are still too young to fly down there. Their flight feathers aren't fully developed. With mom and dad there to care for them, the chicks get free home delivery. One by one, the parents tank up and regurgitate. The fledglings not only quench their thirst, they also receive cooling showers.
We all have our homes.
Today has turned out to be more than just a fantastic way.
Small freshwater fish come pouring after the chicks have hydrated. Each one of them can consume up to 800 grams of food a day. The evolution of the gizzard will aid in digesting every bit of their meal, including the bones they swallow.
So there you have it. If anyone wanted to know how birds digest the bones, especially birds at the shore, it's the gizzard. And I found that because of my lovely wife, who is not just an artist, but she's also a researcher. And just imagine 50 degrees Celsius out here. There is no shade on the top. Whenever we feel hot, we move into the shade, we get into the AC. But in the wild, you have to improvise and figure out ways. Now, you've got feathers covering your body, but your legs are exposed. And that's how these birds keep themselves cool. Okay, this is a really tough one for a lot of wildlife filmmakers. It's just like sports. Sachin hits a 6, it's probably the last 6 of his career. You've got to capture it. This might be your only shot at getting a hunting sequence. Stuff doesn't really unfold, and you get only one chance at getting certain moments. Have a look at this little interaction. It's nothing large, it's just small, but it's these small scenes that become fillers in between a wildlife film. I haven't put sound here, but just look at the interaction. We can't tell what's going to happen. Moments unfold. And it's these moments that really keep a film together. Here's another little moment. This is a carpenter bee, and that's a Bengal fox. And it's a young Bengal fox. Its parents are out hunting, and this guy is exploring the area outside the den. And you see its hunting instincts kick in. It sees something moving, and it realizes, I must chase. This is potential food. This is the coppersmith bobbitt. This bird is the official bird of Mumbai. This scene was also taken from my rooftop, and you're going to see what happens. The chick was waiting. It could hear its mom or dad call. And Akshita, my wife, told me, hey, hit the record button. The parent's coming. So it's so important to pay attention to what's going on and read the body language of birds. The chick was there, perched atop, and it was looking down. And that's how you know
its parent is going to come and feed it. Never in my life would I imagine getting such a clear shot of a bird coming to its young one and feeding it a caterpillar. And this was 30 feet away from the nest. The nest was outside my living room window. This happened on the terrace when the bird came out eventually, and it was looking at the world around it for the first time. And now it will learn where it has to go and get its food one day. This is how species, young species, get independent. They see where their parents go and they emulate it. Another important thing, you need to know where to be and when to be there. Now, let's say you have a water hole and it's the summer. You know that animals are going to come there. Let's say you have a hunting sequence that you imagine. It's not real luck that you go anywhere and a hunt will unfold. You need to know that here is a water body, animals will come to quench their thirst, and it's only a matter of time when you get that hunting sequence. This is Africa, and we have the wildebeest that are crossing the Mara River. These guys move wherever the rain goes, and they chase grazing pastures, fresh grazing pastures. On the left side, they've probably grazed everything that there is. On the right side is incredible food. And it's not the taste that they're after, they need to survive. So they have to eat. It's an instinct. This is what you've got lurking in the water. But instincts and survival make you go to the other side and grab a meal. What do you think is going to happen next? Someone, what do you think is going to happen next? That's what they're after. And they're on their way there. It's not just a crocodile. It's not just the Nile crocodile. You also have lions watching. They have understood that the wildebeest will be exhausted in the water by the time they come onto the other side. And then they make their move. And that was the very first hunt that I saw in the wild. It took 2 subadult lions to take down this young wildebeest. They were very inexperienced. The girl was amazing at it, but it was the guy who was too enthusiastic. And they almost lost the wildebeest. Another part about knowing where to be. Do you know what I'm looking after here? There is something that I'm going after. What is it? Look into the sky. We have thousands of cranes that have migrated in the winter. And it's so important to know their movements, know where they're going to be, so you can be there. That's the shot that I imagined, and this is all of them coming in, entering the frame. I got there before they could get there. Thousands and thousands of them, all escaping the winter in their country and coming down here and finding a haven. There was a beautiful sunset, and there were cranes moving from their feeding grounds to their roosting ground. That's the activity of these birds. They feed somewhere, and then they go somewhere else and they rest. And you need to make sure where these places are, and you need to be there before they can be there. Anticipate moments before they happen. And take that moment and build a sequence around it. Let's say we have this deer, and this deer wants to do something. It's not just one angle that you film it from, because then that is a very simple shot. We have to build a sequence around every little thing that goes on. Every action should have multiple shots. I spotted the spotted deer, and it looked like it was after something delicious. The forest floor had all dried up, but there was an exotic male a little higher than its head. And that's my cue to know that this chap is going to get on its hind legs and reach for the greens right above. You see the wide angle, but you see the close-up,
you have to use a zoom lens, and that's what we eventually do. This lens right here on display is what I've got, and it's what we use for our broadcast shooting. It goes all the way from 50 mm to 1,000 millimeters. So that means I don't need to take around multiple bodies and multiple lenses. If there is a scene happening, I can quickly take a wide shot, punch into a mid, and then punch into a close-up. This guy made a few jumps. So on jump number 1, I would have my wide. On jump number 2, I would quickly zoom in before it could jump and get a different angle. Yeah, a lot of times we imagine that there's a hunting sequence and there are multiple vehicles getting all sorts of angles, but that's not the case. Sure, that's the case on large budget documentary films, but when I'm out shooting, it's only me, and I have to make sure I get multiple angles so you guys, when you'll watch films, feel that premium illusion that there are multiple cameras going on. And the example I'm going to give you next for this is a snow leopard hunting sequence. We have an individual running down the mountainscape, and then we have a group of young ibex moving. It's very hard to to pay attention to the snow leopard and to pay attention to the ibex, which are hundreds of meters away. But somehow, with that one opportunity, it has to look like a multi-camera sequence. Let me show you what this was. There is a female ibex on the rock below, and she is alert. She can't see the snow leopard, but she can smell it. The silence is deafening, and she instinctively dashes downhill. This is the snow leopard's second attempt. Both beasts are running for their life. They're far apart, but if one of the ibex loses its footing, it is an easy meal. The snow leopard stops midway, but then surprisingly, it chases again. Only an inexperienced cat would attempt to close the gap after the distance had increased. Another failed hunt. Another waste of precious energy. In a closer angle, you can tell that it is a young feline. There is still a lot that it has to learn. Caloric reserves in such inhospitable terrains need to be cautiously expended. This was just a practice hunt. To be able to win is to realize over time what is not to be done. The cub calls out. It is exhausted and it yowls for its mother in defeat. With mom nowhere in sight, climbing back up was the only option. Soon enough, the cub was reunited with its mother. Family bonds in the animal kingdom are an absolute joy to witness.
this cub is still dependent and it will stay with mom until it is 2 years old. We started off with a cat that was so ambitious. And let's look at the moods before understanding how to create a multi-camera sequence. We have ambition, and then we have failure, and then we have a reality check, and it eventually goes back to mom. Animals don't just have success. It's a lot of failure, a lot of trial and error. Normally, to have a hunt, filmmakers will take shots from different days and different times of the year and edit it together. But sometimes you don't have the luxury of that time. You have to do it there and then, and it's again only one opportunity which you cannot miss. This entire sequence which you saw just happened in a few minutes. And it took me an understanding of where the snow leopard was and where it will be. So when I can go from one place to the ibex which are lower, I now know the snow leopard's trajectory, and I go to that particular point. I don't go to where it was. You need to know where the animal will be. This sequence happened a kilometer away from the lens. We were on one mountainside, we had a deep valley, and there was another mountainside. And it is really, really hard to even spot a snow leopard which is sitting. And now we've got to see animals which are running. Remember that you have to give wildlife time. Nothing happens in the same day. Animals do not wait there and say, hey, Kenny, come on over. We're ready for you. What sequence do you want? What moment do you want? Do you want a profile? Do you want a frontal? We're here for you. No, they're not. They're there for them. And so are you. All right? This is a field in the run of Kutch where there was a fox that had 3 young ones. And they're very shy. Every time I went to approach them, the mom would just back off. And I was being defeated over and over and over again. And I had to devise a way of getting closer somehow. There's nowhere I can hide. This is an open field. Okay, there's nowhere to take camouflage. So what I did was, I had to act like a villager, use materials they had in the rural setup, take their gunny sacks and make a small little hide where I could sit in. But it turns out that this made the fox even more suspicious. It's got 3 young ones. It's got to protect them. This fat guy comes out of nowhere. He's not Gujarati. He's not some rural fellow. He's come from Mumbai. And he's here, my field. Can't let him come close. Or can I? You see how wary the mother is. She is still very alert. She knows that I'm there, but she has found out that, okay, this chubby guy is not a threat. Let's keep him at bay. He's sitting there for hours. He doesn't come too close when I'm around. And the beautiful thing about this den is when I was going here, I would go for several months. And I really worked hard to get these chaps used to me. There were 3 little cubs, and they eventually became 5. And I realized through a little research that sometimes foxes merge dens when they're under threat. There were 2 adults here, 3 young ones. They eventually became 3 adults and 5 young ones. So the other den would have lost one of the parents. And one parent came here to increase its chances of survival. We can go to our neighbor's place, they probably will kick us out, but wildlife teaches us things. Again here, 3 weeks of just being there. No one has seen close-ups in this resolution. It wasn't just a remote camera. I eventually gained I wouldn't call it trust, because they don't really trust you. They're not going to bring their babies and put them in your lap. That would be trust. But you can
help them gain an understanding that you mean no harm and you are a temporary guest in their habitat. I do not encourage anyone to go close to birds. I do this because I'm a professional and this is part of filmmaking. Here's another example. Getting down and low. It means getting into the marsh, getting covered in muck and bird poop. And if I may be a little graphic, there were villagers behind me pooping as well. It's stuff you see, the stuff you see in the frame versus the stuff behind the frame, completely different. Eventually, this is how close I managed to crawl to these flamingos. I had no tripod. This was completely done handheld. And the key is to document natural behavior. It shouldn't look like those foxes are camera shy and really concerned about this dude with heavy equipment. But they need to forget about you and they need to carry on with their lives. That's what matters. And that is the testament of a wildlife storyteller. I think it's pretty clear. Wildlife is the most challenging genre of filmmaking. A lot of times when we go out in the field, we get nothing. Okay, it may look like every day is beautiful, every day is rewarding. It is really far from that. All right, let's have a look at this clip. This is us in the run of Kutch. And all around us are empty horizons. This is the first time I was going out to get foxes. Saw nothing. I went out with high hopes thinking I'm going to get mating foxes because that was the mating season. And I really wanted to document the life cycle. This was several months even before the cubs were out because it was the mating season yet. Absolutely nothing. Now we move from the desert into a jungle. It's very dense. And here I'm out looking for leopards. So from driving in the vast expanse of Kutch to driving and struggling in dense jungles, you don't really see anything. But you've got to keep going and keep pushing yourself until you find something. That is the reward that you will get. Of course, we have flat tires all the time. We're going over rocks, we're going over thorns, and this is our life. Absolutely fantastic. I love every bit of it. What other challenges could you face, right? I mean, it's just sightings. No, it's not. It's also the weather. And it doesn't just start from when you're in the field. It starts from when you're home and you're setting out. Yeah. Oh. This is from one of my trips to Rajasthan, where I was filming a leopard documentary for a European broadcaster. So all the way from Mumbai airport to Rajasthan. Check this out. I certainly do not miss Water Kingdom. It was nice when I was a kid, and it was nice back then. What could go wrong, right? I mean, you've got like 15 or 20 lakhs worth of equipment. We have 35 kilos. A lot of water collecting. Oh man, that's heavy. You can feel the weight of it. And of course, some leaks as well. You want to get animals in the monsoon. You want to get slow motion drops, falling on their fur, rolling down their face, because that's where beauty is. But beauty comes at a price. This is wildlife, it's unpredictable, and you just have to take everything as it comes. And you have to embrace it, embrace that hardship. That's what you need. That's the quality you need to be a wildlife filmmaker. It doesn't matter if your gear goes. Gear is replaceable at the end of the day. But that's not the only thing. There are more challenges. I had a leopard sighting and we ran out of fuel. We were struggling to find leopards in a dense jungle. And then we find the leopard, but the fuel is gone. And we realized that a little too late. But there's just enough fuel to take a very difficult decision and head outside. That's what we had to do. Welcome to Jaipur, guys. Like I said before, tracking leopards is the most difficult thing. This species has literally evolved to turn invisible. In fact, the very first leopard sighting that I had in this park were just maybe 5 or 6 rosettes in the grass. I could literally count them. I couldn't believe it because for the first 3 days I saw absolutely nothing. I told my colleague Aishwarya, we need to head out of this place. What are we doing here? And I was failing myself as a wildlife filmmaker, thinking that you can't give up. No matter what, you can't give up. 3 days later, I saw 4 or 5 rosettes. And do you know how I saw them? It was a very narrow lane. And then there was a car coming from the opposite direction. And now we are at loggerheads. Who's going to move? The guide and the driver sitting in the front, they didn't know there was a leopard. These guys are experts at what they do. They are supposed to give me leopards so I can bring you an entire film. Not just 4 rosettes, not just one scene or 5 minutes, but an entire broadcast film. And the moment I saw those rosettes, it took me a couple of seconds to really understand what is going on here. And then as I tracked up and I looked at the leopard in the eye, she saw me and she ran. Leopards are the most intelligent animals out there. In fact, several species are incredibly intelligent, far more astute than we know. The moment she had eye contact, she knew that her camouflage was broken and she dashed. I had no idea about leopards, but I was learning firsthand how to deal with them and which individuals are incredibly shy. Her name was Sharmili, by the way. You know why? On my last schedule, I did see her and I saw her cub. Not many people have seen her. But yeah, you learn along the way. And all right, we saw the challenges that we have as wildlife filmmakers. But the most important thing is that animals have challenges too. As filmmakers, we do not just want to show off beauty and fantastic shots. All right. Once upon a time, when natural history filmmaking began, it was all about getting something exotic and showing people what's out there. People know what's out there now. And we have to learn that we need to protect it. These are just a few of the situations that wildlife today around the world has to deal with. Of course, you have habitat loss, industrialization, urbanization. You have poaching, illegal wildlife trafficking, there is hunting, free-ranging dogs, blah, blah. You get the idea. Let's delve into some examples right now. I'm taking you back into the run of Kutch because that's where I spent a lot of time with foxes. And you heard about habitat loss in point number 1. All right? It's right here happening. What happens in front of my frame is beauty, but I have to move away from this on the frame and concentrate on reality. Sure, these little brothers are enjoying themselves while the parents are out hunting. But let's look at the den from a different angle. This is after the frolicking had ended and it was time to relax. What's moving in the background? Can anybody tell me? That's right. Do you know what truck this is? Absolutely. A lot of salt that India consumes comes from the little run of Kutch. In fact, all of you, if you travel around, you have consumed salt from this marsh desert. Everything behind, you have chemical industries, you got salt, and all sorts of other stuff. Can you look at those dots in between the chimney and the building? Does anybody know what that is? Those are cranes. All those cranes you saw going into the sunset, this is also their habitat. And it's really hard for me to accept. This band that I spent almost 5 months with is now no more, because we want to do business. We want to expand, and we always expand at a cost. I worked on a film for the National Geographic Society on the illegal wildlife trafficking of the star tortoise. This was done with my good friend Aishwarya Sridhar, who is a National Geographic explorer. And we went across India. We worked with different forest departments, and we even went to Bangkok. This is an individual in Bangkok who's got a pet. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, because I do know that people here in this room would know someone who has a pet or might have had a pet. But remember, these animals belong in the wild. The more we have them in our houses, the more their numbers decrease and they become extinct in the wild. We worked with the customs. We saw raids happen. We went to different markets. I risked my life to get the story because I had to deal with very dangerous people abroad. I used my smartphone as a hidden camera because the spy glasses that I wore, these guys know it. They're so thick, and everybody knows all of the tricks in the book. I couldn't wear a watch because that would be a dead giveaway. I couldn't wear a spy pen in my pocket. That is another giveaway. But what I did was I put a little flap over my smartphone, hit the record button. It would give me a nice wide angle, wider than any spy camera would, and it would do it in 4K. And that's how we got a lot of our sequences. And for everything else, I would request you all to wait till the film releases. This is us down in the south filming the last sequence with the forest department that was working on releasing one of the seizures they did. There are hundreds and hundreds of scar tortoises, actually thousands of them going. It is the most trafficked reptile here in India. This is a dear friend, Aishwarya Sridhar, and we did this together. We had a very short period of time to do this film. It was a National Geographic grant to make an entire movie, and we wanted it to be absolutely premium, just like the films you see on television. And I can confidently say we lived up to that standard, and we did it in a very short time with limited resources. The challenges. Mumbai's flamingos. This is the courtship dance that you see. Again, only pretty visuals, right? That go onto Instagram and YouTube and all of that. But let's see the other challenges that animals have. Feral dogs are a very big threat to wildlife, especially ground-dwelling mammals. This is a dog. It was a collared dog, and its hunting instincts kicked in. Sure, it gets food from people passing by and feeding it and all of that. But at the end of the day, dogs descended from wolves. And if there is an opportunity to strike, they will do that. I realized that I could tap into the friendly nature of this dog. And I immediately put my camera away and I started whistling. That somehow snapped the dog out of hunting mode. And then it came out. Complete U-turn. Remember, the shot comes later, the animal comes first. So if you have to choose, you need to figure out. Sure, we've made a point that conservation is happening, but I don't want to let the dog catch the flamingo and then have that award-winning shot. Let's just avoid that situation altogether. And eventually she came out, and she was fine. It distracted her completely. She was back on the street and on her merry way. But that's not the case for other animals. This was a little more dangerous to stop. I was following a herd of Indian wild ass. This is an endangered species, and their last populations
only exist in the Run of Kutch, the Great Run of Kutch, and some of them are now expanding, and you can find them elsewhere as well. Here we have a young one and the mother. They got separated from the herd, and 4 feral dogs that probably have had no human contact or very little human contact. They've got to fend for themselves. They've got to hunt. They've got to get their own food. And how do they do that? There's only wildlife, or there is deceased cattle that the villagers will dump somewhere. This is what happened a couple of months ago. Fortunately, there was no hunt. The 2 of them stuck together, and the dog wasn't able to bring the young one down. All right, then we have us. We love throwing our trash. I mean, why put it in our pockets and all, right? It's so uncomfortable. Might as well just let someone else have that discomfort. So here we're back to DPS Lake. You have flamingos which are feeding at the mud flats of Thane Creek, and then they come to roost in the lakes, which are the inland water bodies. But then we throw our garbage around, our plastic and whatnot. That's only soft plastic, all right? It gets a little more difficult. Sensitive content warning. Anyone who is a little sensitive, I would recommend to turn your vision to somewhere else. Maybe you could look at the wildlife map of India. But somehow, no matter how sensitive you are, I encourage you to still look at the screen. It is very important to know what reality is. And for wildlife storytellers, conservation now is the most impactful, the most important angle of storytelling. Chase impacts, don't just chase beauty, all right? We need to make this world a better place. In the water was a broken piece of toiletware. And these are big birds. They don't just come and land on a small perch like that. They have a run-up. When they're taking off, they have a run-up when they're landing. They can't see what is submerged in the water at that speed. It may not seem like some high speed, but it is still an impact. Now, there was a broken piece of toiletware in the water, and this bird would have likely had a collision, I assume. Again, the objective truth could have been completely different, but we did see a flamingo with a broken leg, and that suggests either a dog could have caught in its leg, bitten it, or it had an impact with something hard, either here or somewhere else. Roadkill is another big concern for wildlife. Okay, we're going to step into a little more sensitive zone now. So everyone who's got children, please be aware you're going to see stuff a little more graphic than what you see on screen. This is a common babbler outside the Run of Kutch. It was probably on one of my game drives from the resort into the sanctuary. And this bird would have hit, it would have collided with a windshield of a truck or something. All right, last shot, guys. Look away if you want to, but if you feel you can stomach reality, please pay attention. This is the very first Russell's viper that I ever saw. This is when I was coming back from Konkan, Maharashtra, where I was filming hornbills. And my good friend Kian, when we were driving, he saw something. He said, "Hey, I think I saw something." And in that speed, he could also identify it. He said, "It's a Russell's viper." So we said, all right, let's go inspect. Inspecting is very important. The moment you have a hunch, wildlife storytellers, the moment you have a hunch, go check it out and see what's happening. By the look of this, it was only the head of the snake that got crushed. And that tells us that the driver was probably trying to swerve when he saw the snake. But he got the wrong end of it. He could have got the tail, he could have missed it completely.
but the driver tried and unfortunately got the head of the snake. Here's another one. This is another first timer for me. This is a rusty spotted cat. This is the smallest wild cat in the world. We have it here in India. And these guys catch rodents in fields and whatnot. And sometimes they collide with cars that move. It's really important that we drive very carefully and that we are considerate. On my recent recce, when I was going to a state slightly northern from Maharashtra, it was getting dark, and I happened to notice a lot of golden jackals. And it was so refreshing to see so many golden jackals, because when I wanted them in the run of Kutch, they weren't there. They were almost wiped out. So a golden jackal would be valued in a place where its numbers are so little, but in another place where it's somewhat common, nobody really cares about it. The biggest threat of late is climate change. A lot of people refuse to believe in the science of it. And sometimes even when you put out that sense, it's very hard to convince people. A lot of people think that the earth is flat. But then what can you do? You keep chasing truth and you keep putting truth out there. I was in the little run of Kutch once again, and this time I was here to get the nesting of flamingos. Can anybody guess what happened? We had really terrible weather hit Gujarat, especially the Sada and the little run of Kutch. This desert, which it's supposed to be, was completely submerged. Outside of the marsh, normally just have the marsh area, which is underwater, but this time several other patches of land were also underwater. And the nesting, which normally happens in the hundreds of thousands, was washed away. Agricultural fields. You have farmers that need water oh so badly, but then sometimes there's too much of it. You can't even see your crops. You lose your livelihood, not just for that day or for a week, it's the entire season. That's a school there in the background. Children have to wade in water. The last time there was a flood here, it was 8 years ago. It's not common for this place to have so much water. This is an arid landscape. It means there is insufficient rainfall. That's the meaning of an arid scrubland. Look at this little town. At the same time, there was also Hurricane Helene, which hit North Carolina. Has anyone heard about it? I had a friend of mine who lost almost everything. His business was submerged. His employees lost their families. They were missing. But at the end of the day, nature is resilient. The atmosphere of this room has changed, but as a storyteller, it's my duty to let you feel the punch, but let you feel a relief that you've also never felt before. Out here are young foxes, and they've made their den under a water canal. Just look at that opening there. We just need to learn how to live together. Of course, there's still hope. One of my favorite lines from any movie is from Jurassic Park. It's when Sam Neill says, "Life finds a way." In the film, the dinosaurs were not meant to breed. They were just experiments. But somehow, one sex had changed. You see that in fish. Female becomes male, and then they procreate. Sounds absurd, but the natural world is really full of surprises. That scene in the film took inspiration from reality. And life finds a way.
Every single one of you in this room is a hero in your own right. And I want you to realize that. And when you leave, I want you to sort of unleash that side of you. Let's put wild spaces and fancy national parks at bay. We've got wildlife right here in our city. It's right outside our windows, and we just have to acknowledge it. How many of you have seen garden lizards in your compounds, and now you just don't see it anymore? Yeah? You still see it? You're incredibly lucky. I haven't seen a garden lizard in my building for a long, long time. You're blessed. These are some species that you could see from your rooftop, depending on where you live. Of course, the photograph on the left was taken elsewhere, but it's a reference of what I saw on my rooftop as well. That's an Indian paradise flycatcher. On the right, on the center top, what bird is that? That's a tailor bird. My family, when I was younger, would call it a tit. Other people, yeah, there you go, that's my Uncle Daryl. And then I thought he was the only one who would call it a tit, but it turns out that just became this sort of colloquial term, and it just passed around. But that is a common tailor bird. To the right top corner, we have the coppersmith barbet. This bird is the official bird of Mumbai. Of course, on the bottom right is the purple-rumped sunbird. You saw the nesting. You can see it right here in Mumbai. Just pay attention and keep your eye out. You have an evening free, you have a morning free. Go out and see what's out there. Nurture green spaces. Let's give animals what they need. What do they need? They need food, they need shelter, and they need to find a partner, and they need to procreate. That's the basic essence of life. You need to eat, you need to look out for predators, survive, find shelter, and then procreate, pass on your genes so you do not become extinct. This is from my rooftop again. That's an ashy drongo. The coppersmith barbets, Alexandrine parakeets, and so on and so forth. And this little clip is especially for the audience who have not spent a lot of time looking out at urban biodiversity. There is a lot out there. This short video doesn't even scrape the tip of the iceberg. So if you have a balcony, just throw in a garden, have nectar-bearing flowers. If you have a terrace, convert it into a lovely little terrace garden or a compound garden downstairs and give it time. Nature will come right to your doorstep and it will make a home. If you're lucky, you may even see a purple-rumped sunbird building a nest. But remember to give it time and keep nurturing that garden. These are the best neighbors we will ever have. Give it a shot. Give it a couple of years. Try gardening. It is an incredible activity. This scene happened right outside my window. Do you know what is going to happen? You see, yes. Absolutely. That's the nesting cavity of a coppersmith barbet. This one time I was looking out my window and dreaming, just like I did in school. I would never pay attention. And I saw this little coppersmith barbet come and start drilling. I was still learning about wildlife. I had no idea about these nesting cavities and whatnot, but I was seeing it live. We've got a little coppersmith barbet just pecking in, excavating, making this perfect circle and getting the wood out and getting its home ready. What a wonder, isn't it? And then you have its partner, just sitting there and watching, waiting for the other partner to tire up so it can also go in and then do its bit. Both the male and the female partake in excavation. It is a very tiring activity, but they both do it together. And then after this, I was traveling. And in my absence, an egg was laid. Of course, the mating happened before that. I missed that. The egg was laid incubation happened. A young chick hatched, and the chick had fledged. By fledging, I mean it grew its feathers, but it still wasn't outside the nest. Let's fast forward to the end of March. When I got back from the little run of Kutch, I was actually out filming foxes. Now, let's look at what happened when I got back. There's the little coppersmith barbet, about a few weeks old. And these guys grow very fast, incredibly fast. They eat protein, caterpillars and bugs and whatnot. And that's the first view of the world it has when it's strong enough to come out, look outside the opening and understand, okay, this is what my front door has right outside. The 3 magic words have now become 5. Reduce, reuse, recycle, refuse, and restore. It's all about reducing our waste to the bare minimum, no matter what. We have to do our bit. If something isn't broken, don't give it away. If you have an old piece of clothing, don't toss it out. Give it away to someone who can reuse it. Let things be recycled, not just by yourself, but it can be for someone else as well. A lot of times we look at our old cars and we want to toss it away and then buy a brand new expensive car. But if there is a possibility, see if you can restore that. Reduce your carbon footprint to the bare minimum. Spread happiness wherever you go. Guys, I want you to look at the person sitting next to you and give them a nice smile. Come on, it's a little something. That's what the world needs. It needs more kindness. It needs compassion. It needs consideration. That's something that our world is missing. Compassion and consideration, look at them as umbrella values. Under that umbrella, you have kindness, you've got patience, you've got empathy, and the list can go on. Find happiness and then spread that happiness. What we're going to do now is, because I'm terrible with time and I've made all of you sit for so long, do you want to take a quick bathroom break, anybody? Because what we're doing is we're seeing the very first short film I made on snow leopards. It is an 11-minute film. Anybody? A quick 2-minute? You're all good? Go for it, run. You've seen the film. All right. So to give you a little bit of an understanding about this film, this was the first time I went to the Himalayas for snow leopards. This is in a winter wonderland called Spiti in Himachal Pradesh. And it was supposed to be a photography expedition. But then along the way, I was taking video as well. And I wanted to see, all right, let's see what you want to capture stuff. You don't just want to be a still photographer. You want to explore stories. When I got back, I was told that the snow leopard I was following had died making another hunting attempt. And that was another incident that really got my gut twisted and made me realize that I need to stop doing ads and music videos, and I need to focus on stories that were more important and stories that this planet needs. Between this shot and the news that I got when I came back home, I was following the snow leopard. In fact, it made a hunt on my very first day, but I was still in the vehicle. I wasn't there. If I had a few minutes more, I could have gotten out and set up. But our guide saw the snow leopard and then he said it vanished down. And we realized it sprinted in hunting mode. This guy took down one of the largest ibex that could possibly exist. Huge, many times the size of the snow leopard. You're going to see that. Unfortunately, the ibex fell into a water stream. And in that water stream, it began to get very heavy. So the fur was soaking in all the water. A large ibex can be as heavy as 130 kilograms. It's difficult. Welcome back. It's difficult for a cat to pull that much weight out. Snow leopards are incredible. They're agile and whatnot. But they haven't evolved to get wet. They've evolved to face the cold, to brave the cold. But the woolly underfur hasn't evolved to get wet or to expel water. So it couldn't even eat it in that water stream.
The Earth's crust, propelled into the skies over 50 million years ago. It was this collision of the Indian and Eurasian tectonic plates that gave rise to the highest mountain range on the planet, the Himalayas. Towering to heights of 15,000 feet, the cold deserts of Spiti Valley are one of the highest places on Earth, inhabited by a modern-day people. They live a life of simplicity, in harmony with nature. These jagged giants hide untamed treasures, ones that reveal themselves with the retreat of the summer and the return of a glorious winter. Roots to these treasures can only be drawn in snow. It is here where fables come to life. A red fox scavenges for a meal. Unable to find any, it must conserve its energy reserves and hope for better luck the next time. Life's not easy up here. Even courtship can wait. Back up. That's better. A young ibex forages with its mother. It must graze as much as it possibly can if it wants to survive, or risk losing precious pastures to unpredictable snowfall. The winters here can be terribly unforgiving. Blue sheep, masters of these vertical limits. But even masters can lose their footing. With a broken leg, this injured juvenile was left behind, and with good reason. There are hunters here. The Panthera anchia branched out from the big cat lineage 3.2 million years ago. They have remarkably adapted to become the highest living predator on land, claiming these fold mountains as their own. Nearly half a kilometer below the camera lens is a snow leopard with the kill of a lifetime. A spectacular moment, but only one angle to film it from. It must pull the ibex out of the water soon and get to the warm meat inside. At 130 kilograms, the dead weight of the drenched carcass is an unwanted burden. The disorienting 250-meter fall into a water stream, barely 2 meters wide, could never have been foreseen. The cat is exhausted and injured from the hunting plummet. Its last successful kill may have been several days ago. Starvation isn't the enemy now. Its dense, woolly underfur has absorbed the icy water. Unadapted to repel it, the snow leopard is losing vital body heat. Even time freezes here. The choice between life and death is never an easy one. Unless the will to survive triumphs all else. Another attempt The carcass is immovable. But there's hope. The unsubmerged half of the ibex is still dry. Question is, for how long? Alpine glaciers are melting faster than ever before as global temperatures disturbingly rise. The stream is now gushing faster. The rising water will soon envelop the rocks that support the Uncheer. Standing on top of the kill is the only way to avoid the frigid currents. This old male will spend the next few days keeping scavengers at bay. Staying alive is a struggle, even when you're a snow leopard. The scorching sun is melting more snow, turning the water stream into a shallow rapid. He is losing one of his biggest kills, for no fault of his own. He must find a way to improvise if he wants to continue feeding. He climbs onto the goat's horns. Lucidity is an instinct. The gushing force may have momentarily reduced, but the ibex has frozen solid. Little does the leopard know that this kill would be the last he would ever make. Time may be frozen here, but his is around the corner. After a day in hiding, the elusive cat emerged from the shadows of the mountain across. The ghost of the snow has deflected scavenging attempts from land and sky. A final visit to the carcass. Farewell, old friend. The life of a snow leopard is an extraordinary one, and this old male has lived his to the fullest. His territory is exceptional. Masters of camouflage, you'll never see a snow leopard coming. He has spent the most part of his life in recluse. When he's not feeding or courting, he must scale these treacherous cliffs, for these mountains are his to command. He will protect them with his life. Something has caught the Uncheer's attention. But what could it be? The frozen ibex in the icy water didn't provide much sustenance. Maybe this one could. The snow leopard vanished down his side of the valley, only to resurface hours later on another. The pale snow could easily reveal him. He slowly inched forward and even changed his angle of attack. Experience has made him wise. But the crumbling of rock would betray him. With a head start downhill, the blue sheep sprang away. More than 9 out of 10 hunts end in failure. Exhausted, hungry and cold, the only choice was to retire for the night. After the red fox, it was now his turn to conserve energy for another time. The furry scavenger later visited the icy carcass, still wary of the ghost of the snow. With the cat long gone, the coast was clear. The people of these mountains have finally learned to coexist with these magnificent beasts. They witnessed the old leopard fall to his death during another hunting attempt. The loss of a snow leopard is one that's felt world over. Thousands of miles away, you and I are contributing to their decline. Extended summers have made parts of these Himalayas unrecognizable. Climate change is frighteningly real. This image of the late snow leopard walking across a fractured glacier is a troublesome reminder that we must collectively reduce our carbon footprint or lose our planet's treasures forever.
This is where the change sort of happened. It was born after this story, and that was the realization that natural history is the most important thing. The welfare of our planet is the most important thing right now. Does anybody have any questions about the film? Or shall we save the questions for a few minutes later? There's something really special that I want to show all of you. Yeah, I said that already. This is a painting that my wife made. Look at all the details on the right-hand side. Every feather, every barbule visible. Look at the sheen in its eye. Jano, why don't you come up? Everybody say hello to Akshita. Akshita is my lifeline. She is the reason for my happiness and my joy. And also wildlife is happy. And we've been traveling. We've been married for 2 years, and we've been traveling everywhere. I always thought that I needed to be solo out in the field, but I never really realized how important it was to have someone who can track and have knowledge of wildlife, outside of the guides, of course. A lot of the snow leopard sightings was done by Akshita, and when I was focusing on the snow leopard, she would say, hey, this is happening, and then I would move there. Because we're so fixated on our composition, we don't know what's happening outside. And it's very important to know that. And Akshita compliments me so beautifully in the field, whether it's snow leopards, or it's tigers, or it's even the coppersmith barbet waiting for its parent to come up and feed it. She was the one who said, hit the roll button, the parent is going to come. That's how you saw that caterpillar going from mom, let's call it mom. Mom sounds nice. And Akshita made the hold on. Yeah, she made the shift from Delhi all the way to Mumbai just for me. And it's so beautiful, and I wanted to show her my gratitude today in front of all of you. Janu, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Aww.
A lot of the research is all thanks.
It's a wild guy tape.
Happens sometimes. Where was I?
Lost in my eyes.
As always. Anyway, I want to show you guys a little more of Akshita's work. In addition to being a wildlife geek and a nerd and doing research about species and whatnot, she is a wildlife artist, and I keep telling her that she is the finest in India just because of the scientific accuracy
the lighting, the command of artistry. She is completely self-taught. She studies skeletal and muscular anatomy. That's right, Panda. Every brushstroke. A plains zebra with oxpeckers on it.
She's the best. All the research, the spotting, everything. All right. Q&A, anybody? Feel free. Silly questions are ones that weren't asked. Yes.
Thank you so much. So first of all, I had been watching a lot of videos that Kenneth has been posting. Something that caught my attention is how do you get the background music that emotes with what's going on the screenplay. That's a commendable work every single time. The way you deliver what's happening, also there are a lot of things which you imagine as an audience, but you're able to say that, and I'm like, that's exactly what I was thinking, and you're able to say that. That's amazing. Now coming to my question, very happy to be here all the way from Hyderabad. This is like a mission accomplished for me.
From Hyderabad.
Feels really good. I had been shooting for quite a bit, but the motion doesn't interest me. I still love taking pictures, just still photography. The question that I want to ask, I may offend quite a few people. I feel Instagram has really defeated the beauty of horizontal aspect ratio. Everybody is asking for the vertical 9:16. Posting on Instagram and getting likes, it's not something that appeals to me. But I'm fighting this constant battle when I'm sharing pictures among friends that, can you please send 9:16? So how do we deal with these newer demands of challenging the entire aspect ratio, where I want to see pictures horizontal? Pretty much all the shots that you show in your videos, they're horizontal aspect ratio, but the demand is more in terms of vertical.
You know, as artists, we have to constantly evolve and adapt. You can do art for yourself, sure, that's one thing, but then you also have to do it for an audience. Mediums evolve. And if we don't evolve, we tend to get laid. We tend to fall back and stay there. Sure, you can have your original aspect ratio, that's fantastic, especially for prints, you know. But a lot of content now is being consumed in vertical. Do I like it? Not particularly. And it doesn't mean that all your imagery has to be vertical. Sure, you have some original, keep that as the 3:2 or a 16:9. But also learn that you should leverage the real estate on someone's smartphone. And it would be a smart idea not to take all your imagery, but just a few of them, which you've shot wider. A lot of times birds are far away. And the species that we can't close the gap, those are your shots to have a vertical crop, and that's how you can post it. Just try to find common ground. Some may work, some may not. Don't let that bother you. Keep shooting. At the end of the day, you like being out in the field, you like spending time with nature, taking photographs and sharing that story. So let that be your first priority. Sometimes it's important to evolve. And coming to your first statement about the music, thank you very much for that appreciation. Music is my soul language, and it is for everybody else. And of course, there's so many times you pop in headphones and here and that, and you're listening to something just to get your mind off or an escape. Music is a great escape, and it is also a great tool in storytelling. It's how you can create drama, tension, suspense, thrill, and how you can also have tender moments. So storytellers, if you guys are editing and you're doing videos, or even if you're putting a song on a still, which Instagram lets you do, don't put something trending. Find out, ask yourself, what is the emotion of the scene? And let the emotion of the scene dictate what music you're going to use. In addition to the emotion of the scene, where are you filming? You could be filming in Ladakh. You could have something Tibetan. Go with the landscape. Go with the culture. Let that also dictate what music you're going to put in your film. Ladakh would have flutes it would have a slight oriental touch to it. Get that essence. In the desert, you can do something different. It could be Kutchi music. It could also be something Arabic, because it's got that Middle Eastern vibe going on. So just play around with the emotion, number one, and play around with the location and the culture there. Thank you very much. Music is something I love, and I make sure that it's there everywhere. Yeah. Yes.
So, how do you know the angle that you should take of the animal which we will like to see the most?
That's a lovely question. How old are you?
9.
And what's your name?
Samaya.
Hey, that's a lovely name. Thank you for coming this evening. Now, you can't shoot an animal from the back. You just get its bum. And then there's nothing. There's no expression. There's no story that's conveyed. Unless it's going away to do something, and then you want to see it go somewhere. Basically, it boils down to understanding what the animal's doing and being there to capture that moment. That moment is most likely from the front, but oftentimes you don't really get to go in the front. Let's say you have a tiger that's walking, and you know it's moving to a water body to drink water because you know the landscape there. So you drive there. You avoid the tiger wherever it is, and you go to where it will be. That's how you will get it from the front. A lot of times you don't get the luxury of choosing your angles. What you see is what you get. Especially for the snow leopard film, I only had one angle and I couldn't move anywhere else. I couldn't, descend down the mountain, and I had to make an entire story from one angle, which was very challenging. But just figure out how you can get in front of your animal without interfering with its natural behavior. Let me give you one example. I was shooting a lion film, and there was a water body, and it's very rare for people to see hunts in this particular region. What we did, this was summer, and we have full day permits. So we went really far off, and we had our lens on, and we just waited, because we knew that some stag will come to drink water, and the lions will hear them. Now, I don't want to interfere with this hunt, all right? So I'm going to take my position. I have the water body here, and I have the lions in the far back. I want both the animals in front of me. I don't want to come in between. A lot of times, hunts fail because we're too eager to be there. You have to give the animal its space. So imagine this. The lion is facing me, and I'm facing the lion. We're far away. There's a very respectful distance. Out of nowhere, dozens of, I'm going to say ungulates. I don't want to let you know where I filmed. It could either be deer or antelope. Dozens of them were coming to drink water. But then they got spooked because they saw our car. Herbivores have realized that if a car stops in a national park, it's because they're tiger crazy. They're big cat crazy. That's how they've linked one to another, and they stay away from cars. So that was one opportunity lost, but we waited. A little while later, a male was coming from the right side. And this guy is going straight to the water body and perpendicular to me. All right, I'm looking here, this guy is going here. The cats got up. They circled around, and the chase just began. So positioning is very important, and I'm so glad you asked that. It's about being at a distance, anticipating moments, but 95% of the times you can't. You just have to make do, because sightings are so rare. If I see a leopard, I just have to pull my camera out and shoot it without altering its walk. Maybe it's walking somewhere, it may end up going somewhere else. I may chase it away. I'm going to extend the answer a little bit. I was filming a hunting sequence of a leopard. We were somewhere far away and we heard alarm calls. With the alarm calls was one very frightening sound. And I told my driver and my guide, there is a hunt going on, let's rush. And these guys said, nahi bhaiya, hunts are very hard to see here. But this alarm call was different. We drove in the direction and the driver said, bhaiya, hunt ho raha hai. It was a road. I can't go onto the other side and get another angle because the hunt happened 5 feet away from the road. If I went too close, I could have scared off the leopard. The same leopard that wants to be invisible, the same leopard that doesn't want company or attention. So we had to stop somewhere and let that happen. And when the prey was taken down, that's your opportunity to go close. Remember, you have to make it look like a multi-camera setup, right? So I got that angle, I got a wide, I got some sort of a mid. But to get those close-ups you see of the claws around the neck, and you see one life going, to let another life keep going, you have to get closer. You have to take your audience there with the leopard, and you have to root for that character. Storytelling is so much more than what I can condense in this talk. But eventually we got those close-ups, and the film will release next year. But yeah, 95% of the times, give your subject space and let it dictate what angle you can get. If it lets you get a frontal, fantastic. How old are you, by the way? Because I have a little giveaway for the youngest person who's come today. Is there anyone younger than 9? Going once? Going twice? Is there anyone? How old are you? You're 7. You have to ask me a question if you want to. If you want to compete with the 9-year-old. Come on, Daddy, you can prompt her.
Wanted to know what a hunt.
She wanted to know what a hunt is. Oh my goodness. She's 7. I'll tell you what, sweetheart. In nature, life eats life. It could be plant life, and it could not be plant life. But to support yourself, we have our various diets, and so do animals. And when one life has to catch another life, that's a hunt. So one life goes away to make sure the other life can continue. If we didn't have big cats or predators, our world would be overgrazed. There would be no grasslands, because the ungulates or the other herbivores would have consumed everything. Predators keep the herbivore populations in check, and that is a beautiful thing. It's the harsh reality of how nature is. Nature is raw, but that's how the world works, in a balance, and we have to live with that balance. Yes.
So I have 2 questions.
Yes.
I've been following you since the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's been like
Right from the beginning. Oh my goodness.
it's been a really nice experience watching all your videos.
Thank you so much.
So in most of your videos, I've seen that you've been using the Canon 200-400 tele lens. So how do you get the wide-angle shots? Are you like, you have a 70-200 or something like that?
What you see is what I use. I'm on 200 mm, and then I will zoom in to 400 to get a close-up. What I normally do is I approach my subjects very slowly. So if I'm really far away, that will appear like it's a 70-200. And then I slowly inch forward. I have to make up for the lack of focal reach that I have. 200 to 400 is not much of a zoom. This little beauty you see here goes from 50 mm to 1,000. So that's huge. But yeah, you start far, and then you make sure you do not distract that subject or disturb it, and make it go somewhere else. You slowly inch forward from extreme wide to mid to close up and to extreme close up. The bigger the species, the more likely it is to tolerate you, because it doesn't see you as a predator. unless you're an elephant. Elephants, you know how they can be, they can charge. They like to be by themselves. And historically, elephants have had not so good experiences with humans. That knowledge gets passed down. So there are some species you want to keep a distance from, but luckily they're big. Your 200 mm might look like a 600 mm, depending on how far or how close you are. And then you have these little sunbirds or other species which are so skittish. And you know why? They're so tiny. Imagine you sitting here or sitting in the comfort of your home, and a dinosaur comes to your window and peeps through, just like Jurassic Park. What are you going to do? And the dinosaur's got a camera, and you're going to run for your life. Ignore the camera, there's a dinosaur. You know, you don't want to be eaten. You don't know if the dinosaur's vegetarian or what. Eh? You fly away and just take things slow, basically. Yeah.
And my second question is, so when you're filming, most of the times you're using manual focus. So the thing is like, most of the times filming is done with a zoom for versatility. So when you're zooming, you have manual focus, you have to change settings. How do you do that at the same time?
Good question. Still photography lenses are not parfocal, which means when you zoom, your focus point will shift. Cinema lenses, of course, are parfocal. So no matter where your subject is, you have your focus fixed. When you zoom, it will still stay in focus. Yeah. You're very lucky that technology has improved so much where you do have autofocus. So study your camera, know the pros and its cons, and work around it. So if you are zooming and you want to maintain focus, go for autofocus during that zoom. Just make sure that you do not have a very distracting foreground, because the camera will see something first and think that you're trying to focus on that, and it will shift. I hope I've answered your question.
Hi, I just wanted a couple of views on a couple of questions. One is, what do you think of the 20% that the Supreme Court or judgment that only 20% of the area is open for tourism? Don't you think that leads to a kind of mad rush right now, where you have about 20, 40, 50 cars if there's a tiger spotted and people don't give way? So do you think opening up 100% would kind of disperse a little bit of, you'll have 4 or 5 cars at different gates and not so much of mad rush now?
Good question. It's something that a lot of us tend to dislike the moment we realize that only 20% of the parks are accessible, and you can only go here and you can't go there, and you feel like you're being ripped off. But animal first, tourism later. And that 20% probably has more movement than the 80%. So that's an important point to know. Yes, the rush does happen. More regulation can happen there, and that's something I'm sure the forest department must be looking into. At the same time, tourism is important because that keeps the poachers out, that keeps cars moving into different areas. I didn't particularly like when night safaris happened, but it took me a little while of getting used to, because night safaris happened, I think, only till about 9 or till 10. And it doesn't really go on the entire night. So animals do have their space, but let's take this on us. If we see a rush for one species, it is your immediate responsibility to go in the other direction. Go look at something else. I missed tigers because I was doing langurs, or I was going and getting woolly neck stalks. That 20%, which you think is a limiting disadvantage, is your gateway into discovering behavior or a story somewhere else. I know that we love to have a focus of one species, but just get their entire ecosystem. It's going to take a little time to get used to, but you will find that eventually does make the most sense.
60 vehicles on Muki Gate for that one poor tiger, no space for it to move out. So the whole point was, if you can just divide the vehicles in different zones and, the number can go down. So the tigers have space to move.
Yeah, absolutely. And some parks, they do have a system where you can't spend more than 5 minutes or a certain amount of time, and you have to move and you have to give the others an opportunity. At the end of the day, the system is actually there. We need to follow those rules. See, move on. When I come to film, a lot of times people think I'm spending the entire day there, and then they will put their car in front of my car and I might miss the shot. I can't blame them. It's human emotion to think that, hey, this guy is seeing stuff the whole day. I'm paying for a 2-hour safari. I want to see something. But there's a way to do this together where everyone can enjoy a sighting. Just like I said, spread happiness. We tend to think about things from our perspective. We just need to see it cumulatively together and make sure that everyone has common ground and everyone can see something. Sometimes I've even had cars bang my car. Really, I've had people get into my car because they see my car completely modified. There's no seats. So photographers will jump into my car and try to get a shot. And that makes my entire video, which is the horizon of my camera is like this. When I have weight coming in here, it goes like that. And that messes my whole shot. So just in general, consideration is the most important thing. I'm telling you, it will fix every problem you've ever had. Yes, I'll come to you.
Kenneth, I just want to know that in the future, are you thinking of having any workshops, especially for the young who will get hands-on experience with you being a wildlife filmmaker? They'll get more confidence later on when they go out into the wild and, try to make their future.
It's something I haven't considered. Yes, a lot of people do message me and ask me if I can do workshops. But my time in the field always pulls me out of home and out of other commitments. But I'm always pulled out into the field. And when you're doing a wildlife film, you're out for a couple 100 days sometimes. It's just about time management and something maybe down the line, if I can fit it in between work and in between the YouTube edits, which I hardly get time for, I could probably have a workshop. It's good to see so many people from Mumbai, and yes.
Hi Kenneth, I'm Abhishek.
Hey Abhishek.
As a fellow independent filmmaker,
yeah.
And I have two questions. So one is, I'd like to just understand that, so I believe COVID-19 you switched from advertising to...
That's right.
Just if you could share some insights on like the whole structure of independent wildlife filmmaking, like how in advertising there's a client, there's a production, you make films, you get the money and then you sustain your career. You're lucky if you like making those films. Now in wildlife filmmaking, is there a structure? I'm talking purely in terms of like many aspiring filmmakers who want to make this as a career. So what's the way forward?
Okay, let me tell you how I did this. So my dad was very instrumental in getting me to and my brother to watch wildlife on television. So it started early. It's got to be a natural inclination. It's not got to be something cool. Okay, I'm going to be a wildlife filmmaker. You've got to love it. And then over time, you've got to be obsessed with it. When I saw that we have biodiversity just outside our window, it made me realize that I need to document this. But of course, a little bit before that, I was taking a break from work and doing all of that. And then you saw the snow leopard thing. That was me just taking a break from work, having my escape, and then coming back. But the real switch really took several little bumps along the way. I reached out to a few wildlife filmmakers established in India, told them this is what I wanted to do. Nothing really happened. But don't let anything stop you, all right? You want to do something, do it. So I thought, all right, let this start as exploration. I didn't have a mentor in this field. Ads and music videos are a different genre, a different ball game. Wildlife is something else. Yeah, you have to get into the animal psyche, understand this, that, what it's thinking, what its motive is, all of these things. So
it really started with curiosity and exploration, and the will to just keep going out there. So that was a learning. I made independent films, tried to figure out how I can do a story around it, researched more about species that I was seeing for the first time that I never heard of. That gives you a little more courage to keep going. So the first few years were just enjoying myself outside, the escape. Then I put in a little more seriousness into the films. I thought, okay, there is potential to make series. Funding was not there. It wasn't negligible, it was non-existent. It's all of your savings. I got in touch with some lodges, and the lodges were very happy to tell a story. Because at the time, it was only about still photos, you know. No one was really doing story, and Attenborough was a hero to me. Steve Irwin, Jeff Corwin, Mad Mike and Mark, all of these guys. So I said, hey, there's a potential to do a story here. We don't need a big crew or anything. I'll just come myself. I'll shoot a little bit of your lodge. I'll take photographs for you. And then we'll make a series, which will also serve as marketing for you guys. They loved the idea. They said, come on board. India clearly loves tigers. So tiger country is what shot up the viewership. Along the way, broadcasters started taking notice. They started seeing the effort. I can't really tell you how you need to do things. I can only tell you my personal experiences. They started taking notice. They said, okay, there's this dude going out and he can do things, and let's give him a shot. That's how I got my lion film. And then the lion film, and then I did a conservation film on pollution. I was on the tallest landfill in India, which is in Delhi. I think I'm forgetting the name. But anyway, that was for National Geographic Society. I was a cameraman on that. Shot few sequences. Then I have the opportunity to do a leopard film. Again, this was for a European broadcaster. My background in filmmaking, in ads and music videos, really helped me speed things up. The filmmaking aesthetics and technical skills were there. One thing led to another. They took notice, and I was really, really lucky to get out and make it a full-time career. So my story was a story about just going out there, doing what you love. Someone notices you and gives you that opportunity. Sometimes when you knock, the opportunity is not there, but it's all right. Just keep knocking. Eventually you'll have your foot in the door, then you'll have 2 feet in the door, and things go forward. 100 people will say no, someone will say yes, and it just flows.
That's wonderful. And then as an independent wildlife filmmaker now, what's your ultimate goal? What's your personal ultimate dream?
I do want to explore India as much as I can, tell stories of species that hasn't been told before. The goal is to start producing films. I am currently in talks with distributors and broadcasters. There's stuff in the pipeline, but too early to share right now. But yeah, long story short, the end goal is to produce incredible films from India by Indians and really make it on par with planet Earth, our planet, and everything else that's out there. That's the dream. Shall we try to... Ooh.
Just one question. Tell me, okay, yeah, the mic, okay.
Hi, Kenneth.
Hey, how's it going?
Just an offbeat question.
Yes.
Okay. How important a role a personality of a person plays in becoming a wildlife photographer? My question comes from the background that
it's extremely important.
Every profession needs a specific personality type. Okay. And when I see you on your videos, and when I have heard you for the last 2.5 hours, listening to you, you come across as a person who is extremely humble, down to earth. There is a softness, there's a kindness in the voice. It's like a person who is like near God. And that probably tells me that it's more than you looking for the animals are looking for you. They are in love with.
That's an illusion.
So I just want to understand,
I'm just good at illusions.
How important the role of a personality. You seem across as a personality which attracts. So, and that comes from a person who's very humble, very down to earth, somebody who's very kind. So that's my question.
Thank you so much for the kind appreciation. Animals, it's not my humility that, or anything about me that attracts the animals. It's just me being crazy and really cuckoo about them that makes me capture them. But yeah, the personality is very important in terms of not giving up. You have to keep pushing yourself. Like I said, the animals don't want you there. You're in their home. They're so used to being, of course, in national parks, tigers are used to safari vehicles since they were cubs. So they get habituated. But outside of that, like the birds, they're not really used to you. They're used to people who are stone pelters. They're used to people who scream, who drink, who play cricket somewhere and just yell all the time. So just make sure that you are a temporary guest and that you're not a threat. And also, don't be in a rush to pull out your camera. They don't like attention. So move around, give it time. Every species needs time. The sunbirds took 3 weeks, and then I pulled out my camera for 4 days. I wish I could have stayed longer to get the chicks coming out of the nest and starting their independent life, because that would have completed the story. But a lot of times you have commitments and you have to come back and move on to something else. Don't give up. Don't accept defeat. And make sure that you let that natural behavior continue. If you think you might have come in between their natural behavior, just take a step back. I didn't show you the shot where I was setting up my camera and the sunbird came and then it left. But I did show you the shot when it got comfortable. So sometimes even I can make errors. But what you do in those errors is you slowly habituate the subject without letting it get too inconvenienced. The moment you see it's inconvenienced, move out of there immediately. Let its stress hormones go off. Come back another day. Species first, story later. Story will happen. There's a nesting that goes on another year as well. And as filmmakers, sometimes you miss something in one season and you have to come back another season. So, a day in the life of a wildlife storyteller. Thank you guys so much for coming. Before you all head out here, I have some goodies for you. There's a collection of postcards. Please take one each. There's also 2 bookmarks that my wonderful wife Akshita has made for all of you. One is a caracal, one is a Himalayan brown bear. So carry one collection of the postcards, one bookmark of the bear, and another bookmark of the caracal. Yeah. Okay, that's for everybody. There's the 2 special giveaways for 2 lucky people. If you're not one of them, don't catch my neck. All right? I planned this before coming. I wanted to show my gratitude to 2 people. One who is the youngest in the audience, and the second to someone who's traveled from really far away just for this event. So if you are the youngest in the audience, please come off. Remember, if you're not the youngest, don't hold me to it. But I'll give you 5 extra postcards, I promise. All right. Hello, what's your name? Samaya? Maya, wow. There is a very famous tigress in Tadoba. That was Maya. Everyone knows her, the world knows her. And now little Maya, inside this and inside this is a print one has a flamingo, and one has a tiger. I don't know which one's which. I'm going to let you decide. And I want you to remember that the natural world is yours to protect. All right? A few decades now, when we're old, or a few more decades than that, when I am very old, the fate of this planet is in your hands. All right? Make it a wonderful place. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much. Whichever one. Which one would you like? That one? Go for it. There you go. Thank you guys so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed the evening. There is one more print. This could either be a tiger or a flamingo, I don't know. Someone in the audience came up to me and he said, "Hey, I've been watching your videos. I've come from Hyderabad and you also heard him a few minutes ago." And I think he might have come from the furthest. Is there anyone else who's come from far, far away? Not you, Jahana. It's 2 years. 2 years too late. Okay, Mr. Hyderabad, come on over. Thank you so much for coming, man.
Thank you so much. We're happy. I'm unbelievable.
Do you want to know what this is? Or find out when you get home. Let the element of surprise be there. The storyteller always has, you want to see? If you can pack it back as well. It's huge. Yeah, don't risk it. Yeah? You've seen all the images. There you go. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
I think you guys want me to out of here. No? Okay. So questions are done. What's next?
I think we're going to just...
Yeah? Okay. Okay, so this will come to you. Don't worry. Don't stampede here. It will come to all of you. And while it's being distributed, I'm sure we can do one more question. Yeah? I'll tell you, I'll answer the little boy behind because his arms are hurting now, I think.
My question is that what is your favorite subject to shoot?
My favorite subject. I don't have any single favorite. Everything. It doesn't matter if it's a spider. It's not the species that I run after. It's more of the story. And sometimes the story dictates the species. Like if it's parenting, I would choose a bird because I know that it's going to be there. The nest is going to be there. If it's a big cat, I have to put more effort and track it.
Yeah.
You know? So I will look at a story. It may be very simple, but you build the interest around it. Honestly, birds are my favorite subject. I can't tell you which particular species, but if I had to look at a subject, I would say birds are.
When you were shooting the Amur falcon,
Yeah.
so what was your exact aim to shoot the Amur falcon? What behavior was it?
So now let's look at a trait. The Amur falcon is one of the longest migratory raptors, and it's the longest ocean crossing of a raptor in the world. So there is something to marvel at already. Okay, that becomes your crux. That becomes something you want to chase. And when they come to India, that's a pit stop for the Amur falcons to build up on their fat reserves before they go to Africa. Now, for everybody who doesn't know what an Amur falcon is, these are raptors that come in from Siberia and they go all the way to Africa. That's their migration and back. India serves as a pit stop for them to feed before they go across the Arabian Sea.
And what was the location like?
Nagaland is one major pit stop. It's the Amur falcon capital of the world. And they eat all of these caterpillars, and you get to see that behavior. So at the very crux of it, it is the behavior that always should drive a story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the location? Because that pink flowers and that Amur falcon in it.
3-step verification. I can't really reveal that because it's not a protected area. And as principal, I've only stuck to revealing locations which are protected, and there is a regulation of safaris to go in. But it happened in this state. That's all I can tell you.
Okay.
Yeah. Forgive me, little boy. Maybe someday we can head out together, but without your GPS device. And I'll blindfold you so you don't see the route. Mommy will come along. Did everybody get postcards? Okay, cool. So we have room for another question. Yes. Oh, actually, yeah, he's been. I'll come to you next, right after this gentleman. Thank you so much.
This sunbirds were right outside of the scene it was happening. There was a lizard on top. I moved it away from the net. So what would you have?
Let things unfold the way they do. That's the natural world. We can't interfere unless it's a domestic animal. And what lizard was this? Garden lizard. And which bird was it? The sunbird. What was the lizard doing? Was it trying to go in? Okay. And was it, from the behavior you saw, was it trying to enter the nest? No. So just let it be. Yeah. And it's a common mistake. All of us want to really help out, but all of us really want to. I've been there myself. Oh, so you did it so the sunbirds could still be there for your photographs. It's all right. But it could happen once and then it's a learning after that. Yes?
Yeah, so what's the best location you filmed in?
Everywhere. Planet Earth.
One location that you found really interesting or significant.
Way too hard. Actually, what I enjoy most is going to my rooftop and looking at urban species. That's the honest answer.
One more thing. So you said that personality is important. So what was your favorite subject in school?
My favorite subject, recess.
Courses?
The best. You get to eat your snacks and you get to eat what your buddies have got. And the best thing in school was being out of class.
We don't get that.
I'm sorry about that. You don't have recess?
No, we have history and geography separated. Oh, you said recess. I heard assess. But we do have
recess. Yeah.
Thank you.
But eventually when I got out of school, I realized that if I were in school now, science would probably be my point of interest. Yeah. Yes, Senor. What's the rarest thing you've seen on your... The rarest thing I've seen on my what? On my rooftop. I saw a black kite hunt a pigeon. Now, away from coastal areas, black kites, they hunt. But at coastal areas, they eventually become scavengers because you've got fishermen going out and you've got so much bycatch lying around. And one time, Akshita and I were on the rooftop and we saw this hunt happen. And I didn't have my camera. The best sightings happen when you don't have a camera with you. That was the rarest sighting, I would say, from my rooftop. Yeah. Yes.
Good evening, Kenneth. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, my appreciation to you for conducting such a wonderful workshop. Very educative. Thank you so much. I'm Colonel Benre, retired. I'm coming from Pune.
All right, wonderful.
Especially for this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming all the way.
As of now, today, many people are now inspired with this wildlife photography and all this thing.
It's the new golf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but as you said rightly, it requires some sort of a discipline, some protocols and those things. So, do you have any plans in near future to publish some sort of a coffee table book or anything on this?
Well, I did have a plan a long time ago when I was doing landscape photography. But I will wait for... I realized a coffee table book really needs to have substance of time in it. So maybe I might take another decade, make sure I have a lot of imagery and a lot of stories, more importantly. And there could be a potential of not just a coffee table book, but a series.
Yes.
No. Thank you for coming. So it could be a series in one habitat and another. And then India could be the center of focus. It depends. I don't know. But let's see how things go down the line.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, man. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Have a good one. Has everybody got their postcards? Yeah. Oh my. Yes.
This was a follow-up to my question about the parks. With the ever-growing population of the tigers now, and you have, in some areas, you really have a lot of tigers, they'll body territory kind of, and in some there'll be probably deficit, so they are relocating at some places. So what do you think of this relocation program? In a sense, if a tiger from, let's say, Kana or the Satpura will be transported to Kaziranga or somewhere else, does that territorial memory and different place spook them off, or will it?
I'm not a tiger, so I can't really tell you. But of course, starting afresh is something very new. But it also helps the tiger because that particular tiger may have lesser threats there. There's already a prey base. And that tiger will be looked after by the forest department. The forest department will have their camera traps around. Its movement will be monitored. There will be water bodies kept. So relocation is really important. Like I said, let's look at Sariska. Now, Sariska, everything was wiped out. The absence of a carnivore has a burst of herbivores. More herbivores, more overgrazing, no habitat left eventually. It's not relocated for the purpose of tourism, but it's relocated for an honest purpose of making sure that that ecological balance is maintained. Tigers are more resilient than you know. They're always constantly trying to get their territory, especially the young ones who may have too many alphas concentrated here. And they always end up in some scars or something and whatnot, and a canine missing, and then you can't hunt anymore. So for those particular individuals, it's better that they get relocated. And they will learn how to fend for themselves. That's what the wild is all about. Life is resilient, and it finds a way.
Mr. Lawrence, thank you for this outstanding talk on wildlife photography.
Yeah, and thank all of you guys for coming this evening. I love talking about wildlife. I love talking about storytelling. And this was a perfect opportunity to meet with like-minded people and share that passion. Thank you guys so much at the NMACC for organizing this.
Thank you so much for saying that. Thank you. It means a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming.